You've tried every budgeting app, tracked every purchase for 3 weeks, then deleted everything because managing your money felt like a prison sentence. Here's what nobody tells you. You're not broken or undisciplined. You've been using budgeting methods designed by people who love spreadsheets. And there's a completely different approach that takes 10 minutes monthly and actually works for people who hate traditional budgeting. Let me tell you about Marcus, a 26-year-old graphic designer earning $55,000 annually. After landing his first real job with steady paychecks, he spent 3 hours creating the perfect budget with 20 different categories. He tracked every coffee, every lunch, every subscription for exactly 19 days. Then his friend's birthday dinner cost $73, pushing him $42 over his dining budget with 11 days left in the month. That single meal made him feel like a failure, so he deleted the app entirely. Does this sound familiar? Marcus's problem wasn't lack of discipline. Traditional budgeting fails because it demands continuous willpower and exhausting detail tracking. Every purchase becomes a decision point where you check category limits and feel either virtuous or guilty. This creates decision fatigue, where you exhaust mental energy on trivial choices. The 50-30-20 rule eliminates this by simplifying your entire financial life into just 3 categories. 50% of your after-tax income goes to needs, 30% to wants, and 20% to savings and debt repayment. Before I show you how to implement this, you need to understand what each category actually means, because confusion about boundaries between needs and wants derails most people. Needs are expenses you genuinely cannot avoid without serious consequences. This includes rent or mortgage, utilities, basic groceries, transportation to work, insurance, and minimum debt payments. Notice what's missing from that list. Netflix isn't a need, even though it feels essential. Eating out 5 times weekly isn't a need, even though cooking feels exhausting. The newest phone when yours still works isn't a need, even though everyone else upgraded. Here's where Marcus made his critical mistake. His rent alone consumed 42% of his $4,000 monthly take-home pay. Add his $350 car payment, $120 for insurance, $80 for phone, $60 for utilities, and $400 for groceries, and his needs totaled $3,400. That's 85% of his income before he even reached wants. The 50-30-20 rule wasn't working because his fixed expenses didn't align with his income level. This reveals an uncomfortable truth that budgeting systems alone cannot fix. If your needs genuinely exceed 50% of your after-tax income, you have a structural problem requiring structural solutions. Your housing costs too much relative to your earnings, or your car payment crushes your flexibility, or you're locked into fixed obligations exceeding your income reality. No budgeting method, regardless of sophistication, can make impossible math work. Marcus had 3 options: find a roommate, move to cheaper housing, or increase his income through additional work. He chose a roommate, dropping his rent share to $900. Suddenly, his needs fell to $2,600 monthly, about 65% of income. Still higher than the ideal 50%, but manageable enough to actually implement the system while working toward further optimization. Now let's explore the wants category, where the 50-30-20 rule becomes genuinely liberating. Wants receive 30% of your income and include everything making life enjoyable, but not strictly necessary for survival. Restaurants and takeout, streaming services, hobbies, entertainment, vacation savings, nice clothes beyond basics, gym memberships, concert tickets, and your daily coffee if that brings joy. Here's the beautiful part. You don't subdivide this category further. You don't create separate budgets for dining versus entertainment versus shopping. You simply know that 30% of your income is available for whatever wants matter most that month. For Marcus, that's $1,200. Some months he spends $500 on restaurants because he's socializing heavily. Other months he spends only $200 on food because he's saving for a $600 weekend trip. The system doesn't care how he distributes spending within wants. It only cares that the total stays around $1,200. This flexibility makes the system sustainable because you never feel trapped by arbitrary subcategories created weeks ago that no longer match your current life. The 20% savings category covers building emergency funds, investing for retirement, saving for major goals like house down payments, and making extra debt payments beyond minimums. Minimum payments belong in needs because you must make them to avoid penalties, but extra payments accelerating payoff belong here because they're about building your future rather than maintaining your present. Here's the critical mistake destroying most implementations: treating 20% as optional or aspirational rather than mandatory. People think they'll save whatever remains after spending on needs and wants, which means they never actually save because there's always something else to spend on. The system only works if you treat the 20% as non-negotiable, exactly like paying rent. You save that money first, the moment your paycheck deposits, before you can spend it on wants. This is called paying yourself first, and it's the difference between people who build wealth and people who perpetually intend to but never do. Let me introduce Sarah, a 29-year-old nurse earning $62,000 who represents the opposite challenge. Her needs consumed only 40% of income because she lives with roommates and drives a paid-off car. She felt guilty spending 30% on wants, so she saved 40% instead, keeping wants at only 20%. After 18 months of aggressive saving, Sarah felt miserable. She never went out with friends, wore worn-out clothes for years, and was building wealth while hating life. The 50-30-20 rule helped her realize balance matters. She gave herself permission to actually spend 30% on wants, dramatically improving life satisfaction while still saving a healthy 20%. These percentages aren't magical laws, but evidence-based guidelines working for most people in most situations. If you're in your 20s with no dependents wanting early retirement, you might save 30 or 40%. If you're in your 50s who started late, you might need 35% to catch up. If you have young children with childcare costs, your needs might legitimately hit 55 or 60% temporarily. The rule provides framework, not prison. What matters is conscious decision-making about trade-offs rather than spending everything with no plan. For implementation, the simplest method uses 3 separate bank accounts corresponding to your categories: one for needs, one for wants, one for savings. When your paycheck deposits, immediately transfer 50% to needs, 30% to wants, 20% to savings. Then only spend from appropriate accounts for each expense type. This physical separation makes the system nearly automatic because you cannot accidentally overspend on wants when that account contains only your allocated amount. Marcus found a different approach working better for his personality. He kept one main checking account, but created a simple spreadsheet with 3 running totals. Every few days, he spent 2 minutes updating spending in each category, instantly seeing whether he was on track. The key was tracking only 3 numbers instead of 20, taking literally 2 minutes instead of 20. Some months he checked daily, others only weekly. The flexibility meant he stuck with it because it never felt burdensome. Marcus is now 27, using the 50-30-20 rule consistently for 14 months. He's saved $6,700 in emergency funds without sacrificing his social life. He's contributing 5% to retirement with employer match totaling 8%. He's paid off $4,200 in credit card debt that used to create constant stress. And most importantly, he doesn't think about budgeting daily anymore. It's become automatic, running in the background while he focuses on things actually mattering: career, relationships, health. That's what successful budgeting looks like. It fades into the background because it works. Here's the liberating truth: budgeting isn't about restriction, it's about intention. It's deciding what matters to you and directing money toward those things instead of letting it leak away on purchases you don't remember making. When you don't budget at all, you have less freedom, not more, because you're constantly reacting to financial pressure instead of choosing where money goes. The 50-30-20 rule gives structure, ensuring your money accomplishes what you actually want while removing complexity, making budgeting feel like a second job. Your financial success isn't determined by how much you earn, but by what you intentionally do with whatever you earn. The person making $40,000 who implements 50-30-20 consistently will be in dramatically better financial position 5 years from now than someone making $80,000 who spends everything without planning. That's not theory. That's mathematical certainty based on how consistent saving actually works over time. Start today, not when you feel ready, because every month you delay is a month of progress permanently lost.